On the eve of President Lai Ching-te completing his second year in office, lawmakers voted on whether to impeach him. Although the motion eventually failed, it underscored how tumultuous the first half of Lai's term has been. Political watchers say Lai's second year has been marked by many of the same challenges he faced since taking office.
The incredibly obvious problem is that the DPP does not have control of the legislative yuan. And because of that, William Lai and the DPP have been severely limited in what they can do.
Lai has faced legislative resistance on almost every major policy issue. That prompted several civic groups to carry out an unprecedented recall movement throughout 2025, aiming to remove dozens of opposition Kuomintang lawmakers from office and reshape the makeup of the legislature. In the end, all of the lawmakers survived the recall votes, and the rift between the ruling and opposition parties has only grown wider.
These are all sort of just the legislative issues that Lai has faced, but of course we can't ignore sort of the social side of it, which is that the Great Recall movement that Lai co-signed was also a failure in the end.
Despite facing strong headwinds, Lai pushed forward with ambitious plans to strengthen the country's defense. Last November, he proposed a record $40 billion special defense budget that he said would help Taiwan fend off aggression from China. The proposal was immediately met with pushback from the opposition. After months of stalemate and several rounds of cross-party negotiations, the legislature finally passed a budget bill, providing only 60% of what Lai had originally asked for.
势必将造成国防战力的缺口，影响国内相关产业的自主发展，更将因此错失与国际安全供应链接轨的这个宝贵的时机。
Internationally, China has stepped up efforts to limit Taiwan's engagement with its diplomatic allies. Lai's first trip to diplomatic ally Eswatini was called off at the last minute in April after several African countries suddenly revoked overflight permissions for his charter jet. Taipei said they did so due to Chinese pressure. Though Lai eventually made it to Eswatini by traveling with the African country's deputy prime minister, analysts say Chinese pressure is likely to persist.
I think cross-strait relations will only get more complicated and more difficult. I think China's determination to squeeze Taiwan's international space will remain firmer.
Despite Chinese pressure, Taiwan has cemented its status as a global tech powerhouse, with the AI boom heavily reliant on the country's semiconductor prowess, giving the country greater prominence on the international stage.
I think that the bright spot is that other countries want to engage Taiwan much more than ever. And we can think about, Japan wanting semiconductor fabs. We can think about the Philippines wanting a lot more of this manufacturing there.
Lai used this to his advantage in talks with Washington when negotiating U.S. President Donald Trump's tariffs on Taiwanese goods. Taiwan leveraged semiconductor investment in the U.S. in exchange for a lower levy rate. Domestically, Taiwan's tech industry is propelling the country toward economic prosperity, with GDP expanding by 14% in the first quarter of this year, its fastest pace in nearly 4 decades. The test now is how Taiwan can balance growth across all sectors instead of just one.
So the key is how can we sustain the growth, not by taking down the leaders, but to make sure that everyone shares some of the benefits of this tremendous, remarkable growth that is happening.
Over the past 2 years, Lai has had to deal with a split legislature, Chinese pressure, U.S. tariffs, and diplomatic challenges. In spite of that, Taiwan is moving forward, boasting world-leading tech and economic growth. But challenges still lie ahead for the president as Taiwan looks toward local elections later this year. The question now is whether Lai can turn economic momentum into political success and advance his policy agenda despite deepening political divisions. Hank Xu and Leslie Liao for TaiwanPlus.